Good morning, Tri-Cities. It's 9 o'clock on Friday, so it's time for Coffee with Karl. We have a great webinar lined up for everyone today. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of STEM education and the connection with our community. So it's really my great pleasure to introduce Evangelina Galvan Shreeve, who's the Director of STEM Education at PNNL. Good morning, Evangelina.
Good morning, Karl.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good to be here.
And also we have Deb Bowen, who is the Executive Director of the Washington State STEM Education Foundation and Mid-Columbia STEM Network, but she has given me the permission to use and just say the STEM Foundation. So Deb Bowen from the STEM Foundation. Good morning, Deb.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for, I appreciate there's so many things that are involved in your organization. So I appreciate the fact that I can use the STEM Foundation, which is a lot easier for me to say and remember. Thank you. Well, this is exciting. We were talking about it before, but I'm kind of a science nerd. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but when we get into our coffee cups and mugs and coffee, which is kind of the way we kick it off, I am excited. I've already used it once, but I have a Job of the Cup, which is what my daughter got me after we started Coffee with Karl. And I thought it was a good connection because I think there really is a connection. I've read articles about it, like people that are really, really good at STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that have a connection with science fiction. And I think that's one of the things we'll talk today about. How do we motivate young people in our community as early as possible to see the opportunities in STEM and get connected to it and, try to create some passion. So that's my mug and coffee story. Evangelina, what do you have for us this morning?
Well, I have my favorite mugs mostly at work. And as you know, we are primarily working from home. So I have my best mom in the world mug here at home. And it has all the pictures of both my daughters and over time in the last few years. And I thought that was really relevant because a lot of my personal passion and my work also goes into my home and in supporting my two daughters in their career pathway.
That's awesome. Thank you. Deb, how about you? What do you have for a coffee mug or coffee story this morning?
Well, I actually am past my coffee time, so I don't know if you can see this beautiful goblet, but I have far exceeded my caffeine already today. And but I thought this goblet was fun because this was one of the table gifts from PNNL's 50th anniversary here, and that was 5 years ago. So if we really think about it, PNNL has been here for 55 years, and not just having an impact on STEM education, but really having an impact on the culture of our community. So I just thought this was it's a beautiful piece. I don't generally drink my water out of this, but I just thought it was fun to show today.
It's perfect, and it's a great story and tie-in for our topic today, and for the connection that we all have with PNNL, which is such a huge influencer. I'll just share quickly that had a conversation with a company that is looking for a location regionally, and when we talked to them about why the Tri-Cities, they literally said proximity to PNNL. It's huge. The field that they were in, there was a great connection. So that's kind of a little precursor maybe for our discussion today. But let's start off with talking about STEM education. I think it's something that we're familiar with, but I'm sure you guys both get that question a lot. So Evangelina, do you want to kick us off and talk about what is STEM education and kind of get into the topic a little bit?
Thank you very much. Well, STEM education is, really broad, and why the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory is engaged in STEM education is because it's really part of the Department of Energy's mission to help inspire and prepare the future STEM workforce. As you know, the demand for STEM skills in the country and our community continue to grow. I think many people use this term, but it is truly a true term, which is every job is a STEM job, right? And where we're at today with technology and the fastly growing knowledge in the country, that it's really important that we focus on STEM education. And that's really for us, bringing the unique capabilities of a national laboratory that we have through our scientists and engineers and providing hands-on experience and helping create some awareness about the different STEM career pathways that are available for young people.
Oh, definitely. That's since the technology world that we live in, I had a glitch there in my bandwidth for a minute. Thank you, Tracy. This isn't the first time that she's had to jump in, and I know she does a great job. She puts the whole program together. Thanks for jumping in. But hopefully I've got it solved. But thanks for your patience if I don't. Okay, Evangelina, I caught that you finished up your part, and I wanted to go to Deb to tell us a little bit about the STEM Foundation and what's the role of the STEM Foundation locally and then statewide as far as supporting STEM education and what does the foundation do?
Well, the foundation is a nonprofit. It's been in operation for about a dozen years, and it really was started by an extremely generous gift from the Patel Foundation through PNNL. So another benefit to having a federal laboratory in your backyard. When PNNL brought that gift, it really was to bring the whole community together to look at how to work together to advance STEM education. And the first big project was to build, design, create Delta High School. And it sounds kind of funny, but really a dozen years ago when that first was being discussed, STEM wasn't a household word. Surprisingly few people knew what STEM stood for. So it was pretty bold to come up with an idea to build a STEM high school, and probably even more bold, maybe slightly crazy, to think that 3 districts could work together to get that done, because there were immense challenges to get that put together. But now that Delta is up and running, it is a flagship for our community. And just like you've heard of people saying they come here for PNNL, I've had young people say that they moved here because we have a STEM high school and we have STEM elementary schools and a STEAM middle school, and they like that progressive view of education and they wanted their children to be raised with those opportunities. So that's been a big piece of the foundation. But now going forward, now that Delta's up and running, the board has really looked at what's the next big piece of work. And it really has fallen under this vision of Mid-Columbia STEM 2030. That was rolled out a couple of years ago, and it's really taking on 3 pieces of the puzzle. One is kind of adopting this state vision that the governor and other state organizations have rolled out as a priority, which is to try to ensure that 70% of our young people are on track to earn a post-secondary credential by age 26. And then locally here to say that almost all of our workforce will be homegrown, and that will require us to do a better job of ensuring all young people really see themselves in a STEM career. And then the third piece, another piece that we all work on together, is this notion that our schools, elementary through university, really can become known as a national model for business, labor, and community engagement. So those are some of the pieces that we work on today here in our community.
That's great. That's I just wrote myself a note because the whole idea of families moving to the Tri-Cities because we have, STEM high school and STEAM elementary schools and stuff is really cool because, we've had conversations like with Visit Tri-Cities and how can we partner together and how can we, work on initiatives with their advertising scope. And when they, try to leave messages with visitors that come here, that's a great one to tell people about because, the thought is that if people come here to visit, whether it's for a sporting event or wine tour or, agritourism, farm to table, we need to leave them with some messages about our community. Like if you love to visit, it's an even better place to live. And with COVID and remote working, I think it's a real opportunity because, building that, or I'd say increasing our STEM and kind of creative class within our community is a real opportunity. Great things come out of it. Thank you for that because you just gave me an idea, something that we can work on. I do want to let our webinar visitors know that we will be using the question and answer feature. If you're on Zoom, at the bottom, you can ask a question in the question and answer box, and then we'll work it into our conversation. If you're on social media or on Facebook, you can ask your question in the comment section, and we'll also get to those. So Evangelina, I want to talk a little bit about the big announcement that the lab and Battelle had recently for the future workforce. So could you tell us a little bit about what that was about?
Sure. Yes, we are so fortunate. As the Department of Energy and National Laboratory, we are managed by Battelle. And as you know, Battelle has a very generous commitment to philanthropy, especially STEM education. And most recently, they made a very large philanthropic gift to our community through the Washington STEM Education Foundation, or the STEM Foundation, as we agreed to say. They gave a $1 million gift to help us with all the great things that Deb just shared with us, that the STEM Foundation is leading on behalf of the community. So that $1 million gift will really help us accelerate our work in STEM education broadly and the outreach work that we're doing. I want to say we have an opportunity to, and really this is really about investing in our community, because as Deb mentioned, we're working together sometimes very unusually with the school districts, our business partners, our higher education leaders, and all coming together to really help accelerate STEM career pathways and create that inspiration and awareness amongst our young people, because we want them to come back and continue to do the STEM work here in our community. So we're really excited. We're coining the initiative that the $1 million has helped support as the Stem Nexus initiative. And we're really in our early stages and looking for best practices and innovative ideas to help us do our work. So we're really looking to increase the partnership in that and have others join us in our effort.
That's great. And I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but like such a huge gift from Battelle, and we're so thankful that Battelle decided to make this investment in Washington State, the STEM Foundation. That's huge, and is a big part of obviously showing the commitment that Battelle has for STEM education. So Deb, with the Nexus, STEM Nexus, how does that align with STEM Foundation, and what are some next steps, or maybe some ideas that you guys are thinking about how to implement that funding into programs and delivery and stuff?
Well, I think a big piece to point out is it fits perfectly. I mean, it aligns with all of our initiatives and our priorities. But also, I want to point out, it's not just dropping $1 million on the table and having a press conference and, okay, there we go. It's exactly the model that was used so successfully with Delta. So when they put down the original investment, it wasn't drop the money and go. It was stay very involved. And this is a donor advised fund that PNNL is probably putting more into with staff time and support. So we're working closely with Evangelina and the Office of STEM and some very talented people at the lab to build this out. And that's a huge gift to our community in itself, in addition to the funding. And I'm very hopeful that this will have the same kind of results and the same kind of leverage that the Delta project had, that it brings more community members in, and it really accelerates the work, because what we know is we've got to do more. We've got to do better. This isn't enough. If we were satisfied that this was enough, we could, just keep kicking the can down the road, but it's going to take some more bold steps like this to really connect with young people and make this really happen.
That's a great point. We do have a couple questions, and I think they're relevant right now, so I'm just going to jump into them, within our discussion. But we had a question from Facebook about Delta High School and asking, do they offer AP courses along with Delta courses that can be used as college credits? Deb or Evangelina?
You know what? We don't really speak for Delta.
Okay.
I can't say that for sure. I don't really know, but
Yeah.
I know that their staff would be happy to talk to you about the full range of course offering. Evangelina, are
Yeah.
you familiar? I bet 99% yes, but I wouldn't
I,
speak for Delta.
right, I have the same comments as Deb, but I do believe they do have advanced placement courses. It's very easy to check their curriculum if they go to
Yeah.
the Delta High School website.
Yeah, that's a good point. And when we talked before we started this morning, maybe a week ago or something, I told you about a little bit about my background, and I worked on an initiative in Idaho called the Idaho P-Tech Network, and we were funded by the Albertsons Foundation over there. And I learned more about high school and credits in college, like even when I was a student going through the system. And I do know with AP and which college accepts AP credits versus, which college gave the credits is always an ongoing conversation. And so I think that's the best reference. We can reference this guest to the Delta High School and get them connected there. And then for Deb, we had a question. Can you please repeat the full foundation's name? And I know I said it before, but besides the STEM Foundation, what's the full name of your foundation?
So the foundation was founded with the name the Washington State STEM Education Foundation. But as we've looked at leveraged partnerships over the years, we partner with Washington STEM, and that makes us the Mid-Columbia STEM Network. So that's under our umbrella of work. And then over the last since 2019, we applied for and received notification that we would be named the Southeastern Washington Career Connected Learning Network. So we operate under that sphere with that title and funding from the state to do that work. And then we have a whole series of programs called STEM Like Me, and we offer those out to partners across the state and now even across the nation. And so we we do business as, we're registered with the state of Washington as the STEM Foundation, and that seems to just put everything under one bucket.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. I appreciate the description there. And then one other one that we had about the definition of STEM versus STEAM and maybe the evolution. And Evangelina, do you want to answer this one? Like what's the extra A in STEAM and how's that evolved or involved maybe from STEM to STEAM?
I think that is an ongoing conversation, right? We have chosen to really just focus on STEAM. However, I think pointing to STEAM is the arts piece. And as I said earlier, every job really has a component of STEM in it or a STEM skill need in it. And so I think that that's really a choice in coining what the focus is. And sometimes the term STEAM is used to highlight the importance of the arts and other components in the STEM work. But I think STEM was, as Deb said, the term that became more familiar a few years ago with everybody. And since then, there's been that evolution. So I think when we use the word STEM, it's not saying that the arts and humanity and the literature aspects aren't important, because of course, that's really important to have strong writing and background like that's provided in our arts and humanities.
Thank you.
Not sure if that's a direct, but you can Google that and spend a lot of time having a philosophical conversation over that.
That's awesome. Well, I think, I guess within the realm of science, we all know the importance of data. And I just read an article not very long ago that was done by a group that, sells a data service out of Moscow, Idaho, called MZ, Economic Modeling Specialties Incorporated and stuff. But they've done a lot of work from using Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then they've got a back end of their software that scrapes a lot of data from like Career Builder and websites where you'd post your resume and stuff. And what this report did was to show the different degrees and educational levels that people had attained, and then what fields they went into. And it's kind of this really cool map where it showed like the connections with lines that were different width for showing quantity and stuff. But that when you look at that data, it really reinforces the STEAM aspect. And even, you know, if you get more of a liberal arts degree, potentially, or certificate, that there are really a lot of things from the business world to different fields that's really valued and a big part of what you're talking about, right? When we talk about STEM, it's like every job's a STEM job. Every job to a certain degree could probably be a STEAM job too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, this is amazing. I mean, you're both really doing really cool, unique, and impactful work, but do you have maybe some specific programs that you'd be willing to share with other organizations? And then, you know, since we have an audience here today and then we post it online, you know, if I'm a business owner and I'm looking for some, you know, certain jobs that it's hard to fill, and maybe there are jobs that require certain educational or training program, are there ways that, you know, businesses can get involved with what you're doing? And maybe if you want to kick this round off, Evangelina.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we do have one program that actually Deb and I are spending. We have two programs that we both have a lot of our hearts in right now. So I'll talk a little bit about the program that we have. We have a program called the STEM Ambassador Program. And basically, it is a model that really utilizes the unique capability and the staff that we have at the National Laboratory to help us really tell our story. So we have over 100 staff right now at PNNL who are part of this program, and those are mostly scientists and engineers. And the uniqueness about it is that we have spent time training them on how to become broader communicators to many audiences, so others can understand the unique work that we're doing, and especially sometimes the very complex research that we're engaged in. Over the last year and a half, we have created portals, which are displays that help them have interactive opportunities with primarily students to help them get excited about what they're learning. And they may not realize, like, something that it could be an everyday action that you do on could actually be something that leads to a scientific career, for example. So we have found extreme success with that. Our STEM ambassadors are deployed in the community, in our schools. They help lead STEM showcases, have been engaged in STEM family days. And most recently, we have done a train-a-trainer and have started to share our model with other national laboratories across the nation so their communities can benefit from. We've seen a tremendous growth in the number of students that we've been able to reach through this. And the exciting part is when you hear a student say, well, I could be a material science and engineer, or I could be a geologist. And that's really when you know that you've done something great. The model of the program is something that Deb and I have been talking about that we really feel we can share with our business partners in the community about inspiring their staff to help you know, bring recognition to the different unique STEM jobs that they may have within their organizations, and how they may join us in our effort back to the STEM Nexus, right? So how they can join us in their effort in inspiring young people about the unique STEM careers that are available in our community. So I'll let Deb talk a little bit more about this and how it partners with her program.
Perfect.
Well, we love the STEM ambassadors because they are ambassadors to the Disneyland of STEM.
Yes.
And so we're very excited to be really trying to leverage more of that partnership and expand that, because, you know, too many students still don't know what goes on in a federal laboratory. We didn't really start out to be in the business of programs. Certainly there was programs that went into Delta, because a cornerstone of a great STEM high school is career connected learning. But what we found as time went on is that there seemed to be a missing link in our community. Teachers wanted programs, volunteers wanted to help, and there was actually a beautiful website that was set up for a time called STEM on the Brain, and it was to match volunteers with teachers. But what we looked at after that had been in operation for 2 years was it wasn't happening. Teachers were too busy. They didn't exactly know how to use the volunteers. And so in about 2014, just seeing this gap, we created a program called STEM Like Me. And that was funded primarily, Washington River Protection Solutions came in big to help us get that started. That was focused more in 7th grade. And then as it's evolved, we've added STEM Like Me grants for teachers, which Bechtel was the founding funding partner on. And then our school-based internship program, Jacobs came in, CHPRC, and now MSA is going to pick up the reins on that. And Evangelina and I are working on how we expand all of that and integrate the ambassador program into STEM Like Me. So we started with that, and then it was recognized in 2016 by the governor as a best practice. Wow. In STEM education, in career connected learning. And we started to just share it. We have a whole cookbook of how to do that. And we share it with select partners through our Washington STEM partnerships. And then we've started to get requests across the country. So it's a program that's grown. Like I said, we didn't start to be in the program business. We just saw that need. But a role for us too is really, as Evangelina said, and with this nexus, is to look at what else there is. What are the best practices? One that we've been working on through Evangelina's leadership on the Education Council for My Try 2030 has been this internship portal. That's going to fill a critical need. And it involves a lot of partnership, a lot of vision with AWB and the chamber, and really the wonderful leadership of CBC and WSU to really, to me, it's quite extraordinary that CBC and WSU are working on this together. Either one could have their own internship piece, but they're coming together on this. And so looking at programs like that, and when you mentioned P-TECH, Brian Moreno, he's just like a superhero to me. He got his teeth into P-TECH maybe, I don't know how many, 3 years ago. We know we've promoted it at our annual STEM event for at least 2 years. We've had a breakout session. Evangelina and I work on the statewide work that's being done to try to bring that. Again, a great partnership, CBC Pasco School District. It is all of these unique partnerships that we've got to scale and get better at that, that will start to close the gap for us.
That's great. I think that actually corresponds to a question that we have that maybe we can jump into, and you know, talking about Brian Moreno and P-TECH and combining the local school district with the community college in Pasco and CBC. We got a question about the STEM Nexus, and are there any opportunities for the STEM Nexus to be able to focus on underserved students or rural communities? Because you know, I mean, I brought up my experience in Idaho with the STEM, and we actually took that, P-TECH, you know, we took the P-TECH model, which is in New York. It was partially funded by IBM in the state and a lot of partners, but it had like a corporate sponsor, a high school, and a college, basically all in one. And then the idea being that as students graduate with like an associate's in a technical field, they would then be qualified for a job at IBM. And, you know, in Idaho being a lot more rural even than Washington, we tried to take that like brick and mortar model and break it up into a network. That was kind of the idea. So this question kind of relates to that on what are opportunities with the STEM Nexus you know, will there be opportunities for either underserved students or rural communities? You know, I mean, we're here in the Tri-Cities, we kind of have that advantage, but as we go out into the countryside, are there ways that with the STEM Nexus that you're planning to connect with some of those students?
Absolutely. In fact, that is our primary focus, that population. The idea is through the STEM Nexus and the investment in the STEM Nexus that we focus on underrepresented and underserved communities. For us here in the community, that's a great deal of our own communities here in the Tri-City areas. And so our goal is to ensure that we're very purposeful in our efforts in reaching out to that community and providing support for them. The goal is that everybody benefits, but we want to really be purposeful. As you know, even during this difficult time on the education system right now, we're even starting to see even more disparities. And so we're being very purposeful in our early projects that we're developing right now in partnership with Deb and her team to ensure that our underserved communities here in our rural communities are impacted positively.
That's great. You know, it's one of those things that you know, there's the shift, which has been going on for, you know, more than 100 years, but away from the rural into, you know, more urban centered. And sometimes those students up there, you know, because of the school district or their funding or whatever the issues is, they really, you know, Deb, you talked about programs, and when you get out in the rural communities, they just don't have the opportunities for programs like everything that you're talking here. So that's great that you can extend that out and then focus on those underserved kids. I know on a Zoom call, I think it was, we were with the Badger Club, and Michelle Whitney from Pasco School District was talking about, they did a survey of their students within the Pasco School District, which is urban and suburban, right? So I think that she said something like 30% of their students didn't have broadband access to do remote learning. And so there's examples like that, to your point, that there are really some underserved kids that it's great that you're focusing on those groups to try to involve them as well.
Yes.
That's cool. Okay, next on my list is, as you talk about STEM education, all these great programs that you're doing, it seems like that the role of educators is really important. I think that's one thing that you know, in my example, we learned is that, and Deb, you talked about this, that, you know, the STEM Foundation doesn't want to be delivering programs, that you kind of partner with school districts. And I think that's a pretty universality that we have, that school districts have the connection with students and everything else. So the role of educators seems really critical in this. And I think you talked about it a little bit before, Evangelina, but can you give us some more detail on, like, how does the lab interact with educators in the community? And then we also had a question that I think we can roll this all in together, is what kind of volunteer roles does the STEM Foundation offer for individuals? So, you know, you talked about the ambassadors program, how PNNL staff members are working as the ambassador to school, but within that realm, if there's a community volunteer, maybe somebody that's retired or wants to volunteer, are there opportunities for that too?
So I can take the first part of that question, which is the role of the educator and how critical they are. As we all know, the educators have so many things that they need to do and so many initiatives and requirements that they often have to integrate into their classroom. And so for us at the laboratory, one of the unique programs that we offer that we believe that the educator really helps us amplify our impact to students and creating that awareness and excitement around STEM careers that are really important, of course, not only to the Department of Energy, but to our community and the nation. And so we have a program called the Teacher Science Partnership Program, which is a really unique program that offers a 1-week summer experience for a teacher who actually comes in and works side by side next to a scientist. And parallel to that research experience, they're doing real research and they have a scenario and a problem that they're engaged in solving. We have a parallel track that follows them and provides them guidance on how they use that experience and what they're learning and how to apply it back in the classroom. Wow. And I am telling you, it's probably one of the most rewarding programs that we have for teachers and for us in terms of really wanting to impact many lives, especially those underrepresented, underserved lives in our rural communities. Yeah. This is a way that we don't reach one student at a time, but imagine the teacher and the multiplier that the teacher has when they go back to the classroom and they have 6 class periods of students, and year after year, they're taking what they learned in that national laboratory experience and applying it, the real world science, into their classroom. It's been a phenomenal return. And we have teachers who want to come back year after year because of it. But
I mean, I am kind of a science nerd, so I kind of got chills as you were describing that, because I think it's so cool. You know, I mean, like, yeah. What better way to use that multiplier effect like you talked about and really put it to work and then form that partnership with the lab? Like that is really cool.
Yes,
awesome.
It's been great. And I have to note this because it's important. We could not do that program without our community partners. The Association of Washington State Business has been a strong partner, and the Educational Service District locally has been a strong partner as well.
Oh, that's great. And Deb, I guess I did kind of combine too many questions together, but do you want to take the second part of the question about, like, are there opportunities for community volunteers to get involved in the work of the foundation? And some of these
Sure,
programs?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That was kind of what was the birth of STEM Like Me, was how do we better do that? And so now we can offer everything from a 1 hour or 2 hour commitment clear up to encouraging the hosting of an internship. So we've got that whole continuum. Now, right now, we're in kind of this limbo land of student outreach. And Evangelina and I have been working on a project to create video, short, engaging video that we will couple with our volunteers and put them still in touch with the students, so that it's not just throwing another video at a poor student but students have to know that we care if they're going to care. And so part of that is engaging STEM ambassadors, but also a broad range of community ambassadors. So we have skilled trades, we have retirees who do engaging activities with students. We have a complete training program to engage them. We've been a little hesitant right now because the schools are in, so much dismay. And there's legal issues that we're trying to work through, and how do we get our volunteers? We don't really want them beaming into some little kid's, chaotic house where they're embarrassed and we can't go really face to face. The kids turn off their cameras. But as soon as we can better go back to that model, probably the most exciting piece of it is I don't know what the statistics going to be on how fast we've accelerated our ability to use formats like Zoom, but we're going to be able to take these programs and working with all the brainy people at PNNL to make those more engaging and beam those programs into rural districts so that we're able to do engaging work, but reach clear up to like a Clarkston or a Dayton or a Pomeroy. And now even some of those districts as of today are still in school. And so we're looking at trying to develop some pilots so we can refine this work. So if people are interested in volunteering, please contact us. We may not have a spot for you today, but we want to work with you and learn what your interests are. And then we also really want to encourage business to think about this greater capacity for more internships. Internships, they can be tough, especially if you're talking a high school intern. Some are not fully formed humans yet. And, it's not always easy, but, we had a young woman who spoke at one of our board meetings from Delta. She thought she wanted to be in healthcare administration. And so the Cancer Center, Tri-City Cancer Center, graciously let her have an internship as a high school student. And she went over there, and after doing that internship, she kept looking across the hall at patient services, and she came back and she said, maybe I don't want to be in administration. I think I want to try, patient care. And so they graciously took her back and let her try another internship. And she's up at Gonzaga going to be a nurse practitioner. So what a sad story if she would have spent 6 years getting a master's in healthcare administration only to get in the hospital and look across the hall. So these internships, they are a lot of work. They're a big lift, but they're really critical. And now that we're going to have this vehicle through the chamber and through AWB to be able to better make those connections, we got to look at capacity. There's hundreds of kids. PNNL hosts hundreds of interns. They've done an amazing job of retooling. Evangelina created a national model for virtual internships. But every company, please take a look at what your capacity is. Even one intern would help. And there will be this portal so that you can sign on and be a part of that.
That's a great point. And you just gave me something else to write on my list of notes, because I think you're exactly right. And even a first step before the internship is, and I think about kids in our community or any kids sitting at home on Zoom or in the future, hopefully sitting in a classroom, and then thinking about their future and thinking about how the subjects that they take relate to what they may be interested in, or maybe someday be passionate about, right? That gives them the wherewithal to complete the program they're going to have to get in the program. And I think tours of local employers, just to start the awareness. And I think that from the employer point of view, like, there's an opportunity to build a relationship with students, to, if you will, do some branding, give them a hat, give them a, not a coffee cup for kids, but give them something to remember. And if you give a really good tour and show them what that job looks like, to your point about the, in the hospital with the intern, I think it's a great opportunity. And so that's something that, I think from TriDec's perspective with our membership base and the different, folks that we have on our board, I think that we could be helpful in that realm, and maybe, work collectively amongst all of us and all of our partners and the school districts to maybe start something like that up. And they're probably already doing it. I'm so new, I probably just don't know, but if there's something that we can do to help, I think it would really to help, to your point, a lot. And Deb, I want to stay with you for a second, because I know that the foundation has a big event coming up that everybody's invited to attend. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, we'd love to have anybody join us. We have a virtual Southeastern Washington Future Workforce Summit. It's coming up November 17th. If you'd like us to send you information, you can write to us at dana@stemlearning.org, and she'll be happy to send you an invitation. It's a day-long event, and it really gives us a chance to focus on a number of topics related to developing our future workforce. So we'll have major employers talking about the gaps and the needs, and we'll have Evangelina's leading a lunchtime conversation with some early STEM professionals about the barriers. And then we'll be highlighting some of the ways that employers can get involved and community volunteers can get involved in the afternoon, and then ending with some information about FAFSA and funding higher education. So please, you're welcome to join us. It's virtual. You can Zoom in and out, and we're partnering with the ESD, and we've had a lot of help from PNNL and the Nexus on getting this put together. And you can even apply for clock hours if you're an educator through the ESD.
If it's for employers too, we'll follow up with you, because if there's a way, again, we can push it out to our members and just, make sure that we get the business community involved. If that's appropriate, we'd be happy to push that out too, Deb. That's awesome. Thank you.
We'd appreciate that.
I think Deb talked a little bit about it, and Evangelina kind of talked a little bit about it too, but the Lab Summer Internship Program, which I've heard amazing things about, like the number of internships that the lab offers just blows me away. But I know that you guys made this really quick pivot to make up for COVID instead of in person, but Deb, Evangelina, can you talk a little bit about what you guys did and were able to accomplish this year?
Yes, it was an incredible year for sure. Back in March when COVID all started, I think the initial reaction around the country was to really focus on basic operations, which is understandable, right? Because we as a country were in a state of shock in how we were pivoting our regular employees and our main function of all our organizations to ensure we were meeting our business outcomes. So I really appreciated the Department of Energy and the PNNL leadership team that gave us a little bit of time, a couple weeks, to come up with a recommendation. It was very ambitious, but really we were able to really come together, and we were able to host over 1,000 students remotely this summer. It was scheduled to be one of the largest summer internship programs that we have seen in the last few years. Wow. And for us, many of the things that we've been talking about this morning were really important. All of us have been in a state of shock, right? So imagine those young people who are in the continuum of their education and who had great internships planned throughout the country, and travel restrictions and so forth, that everybody was already in shock. And those who were already pivoting from being on site for their education for the academic year had to pivot to go remote last spring. And so we made a decision. Like I said, I really give Dr. Steve Ashby and the lab leadership a lot of credit for believing that this is something that we could come together and do. The Office of STEM Education and my staff, but really the whole lab came together. And most importantly, the hiring mentors, which are the scientists and engineers who host it. Because as we were, as Deb mentioned, trying to learn Zoom and all these other online platforms, we were asking them to provide oversight management and a great experience for students on doing science in a remote fashion. So we did it very successfully. And for me, I can say that we made an impact in ensuring that those students stay on a STEM degree pathway. They're excited, and they were reinforced at a time where things were very chaotic in their lives. So I have heard that it was a great experience for both our hiring mentors, and the research work that the students were engaged in were accelerated because of their involvement, because young people come with a lot more experience in technology than some of us. And so I think that really was a welcome surprise. But we're continuing on that path today. We continue to host students through the academic year in a remote fashion. And we have plans to continue to do that as long as we need to.
That's great. Well, that's great. You know, we think about many times education and we think about large organizations being pretty inflexible, but that's a great example of how the lab was able to, you know, quickly pivot and really leverage technology to accomplish some great goals. It sounds like a huge win. That's awesome.
Yeah, we would be happy to share. You mentioned what could other businesses do in offering internships, because I know sometimes it's just a challenge, like what does that framework look like, especially in times like this when we're working remotely. We were able to help inform, as Deb coins, a cookbook or a guidebook for how do you provide a strong mentorship for students in a remote setting. And so that is something that actually the Department of Energy at the national level has shared with all the rest of the national laboratories to help them in their leadership support more remote internships as well.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think you just hit on a point that we talked about before, but how do we connect with those rural students, you know, in remote areas? And obviously broadband is an issue, but assuming that they are able to work, you know, remotely, like for your internship program, that's a great opportunity, right? Because I think, again, from that rural aspect, you hear employers talk about it a lot, like an employer, depending upon and across the board, whatever position they're trying to hire for, there's this perception that if you grow up in a rural area and you're like a farm kid or something, right, that you have these skills inherent because you've, you know, grown up in that environment. Oftentimes builds different skills in young people than it might in an urban or suburban area. So there's always kind of that desire to, like, how do we connect with them? And that's a great example of that. Like, how do you let those kids in the rural area know about the great opportunities at PNNL or our other employers, you know, here in the Tri-Cities that might be participating in those programs? That's a really good example.
That's great.
Deb, I know we talked about this a little bit, but are there any other things that from the STEM Foundation that you're working on COVID related on, you know, still delivering the programs and working collaboratively that you can add to the discussion?
Well, you know, like I say, I think that one of the good things from COVID, if we look at what can be the benefits that come after, I think we get so caught up right now, everything's urgent. Everything is, you know, we're running with our accelerators down, high adrenaline, and yet we've got to just step back and say, create a little bit of space. When I'm hiking with my dog, I try to just make myself think forward. What can this look like? And that's why it's fun to be partnered with the lab, because there are a lot of people out there that think that way. Like, how do we do some really big things? In terms of the volunteers, we're just going to be starting a work group on these school-based internships that I mentioned. It's a way to allow many more students to be involved in an internship. And we're looking at how to do that virtually, working together with the Office of STEM and at PNNL, how do we take this wonderful model that CHPRC developed in partnership with Chiawana and bring that to more rural districts through technology? And so if there are companies that would be, it's a bigger lift. It's what I would call a medium lift. It's 5 one-hour visits. We work with a teacher and we craft something that is a work-based problem that's real and relevant, and the students have to work through it with their mentors and come up with presentations. And so if somebody's interested in that program, we are going to be starting a work group on that coming up soon. And I will say about rural, sometimes one of my best stories about diversity came from Connect Tri-Cities has an engineering competition every year. Although we're not connecting right now, there was a group of students from Lapway, from the Nez Perce tribe. They, for the first time last year, put together a team. And the fundamental piece is that every school that funds a team gets some money from MSA to buy their materials to solve a problem. And the problem last year was a trebuchet that's kind of like a catapult. Yep. Every Tri-Cities area team came up with some great solutions, all went to Home Depot, Lowe's, got all their materials. The Lapway team showed up with something that was all natural materials. They'd harvested the deer, they'd tanned the hide. There was no metal pieces. They used wooden dowels crafted by hand from wood that they collected. Yeah. So when you take a team like that and you put them in a lab, or you put them at Hanford and you put them with the Home Depot Tri-Cities team, you're going to get a better result. Yeah. So we've got to figure out how to get more of that, how to bring more of that, because we will undoubtedly have better results for everyone.
That's awesome. That's a really great story and really cool. And to your point, it's about combining both of those things, right? It's about combining the off the shelf with harvesting it locally, and because if you can bring them together, you're going to come up with a better outcome. That's a really awesome story. That's great. Well, we're down to about 7 minutes. I had a question that I wanted to get back into, Deb, just briefly, and that is, you talked about the governor's challenge about, I wrote down 70% of young people in Washington getting some type of post-secondary certificate that relates to the workforce by the time they're 26. And just, when we talk about all the things that we're doing, all of what the STEM Foundation's doing and what we're doing at the lab and partnering, what are ways that we measure it? And I think that measurement and data, we talked about it before, I think in this area, it's always a challenge, because, what's the meaningful data that we can look at, and then how can we show that we're making progress? But from a data point of view, how do you guys collectively look at this? And what are some things that, we could even drill in on when we're kind of asking people to volunteer, and maybe businesses to get involved, and, show literally the nexus of these programs, how, what's the benefit maybe in building that future workforce, or what are some numbers that we can key in on? Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Some of the best work that I've seen on that came out of Partnership for Learning. And they did some research that really showed how many more students, and it's on their website. If you want to see it, it's a map. It shows how many more students we need to get graduating from high school, and then how many more students we need to enroll in some type of post-secondary training within 2 years of graduation. And then it shows how many more students we need to get completing. And then it shows how many more students we need to get back into the pipeline who dropped out. If we're going to get to the 70%, they've got a roadmap. And I find that really a helpful piece of information. One of the big things that they pointed out for the state of Washington is that we don't do a very good job of getting students enrolled in some type of training, an apprenticeship, a certificate, something within 2 years. One of the big points the governor made when he rolled this out was that we've got this 10-year gap. Kids are spending about 10 years couch surfing, waiting tables, just not really focused on a career. And I don't really blame the kids so much. I think that we need to do a much better job, and it really starts in K-12. And so the state mandated that students complete a high school and beyond plan as part of graduation now. And so they need to identify who they are, what they want to do, or what they can become, and how to get there. Well, the problem with that center question, what can I become, is the kids don't know. And so here we have this graduation requirement, and I've talked to the State Board of Education, I've talked to OSPI, and we're looking for what are the best practices to help kids fill in that answer before they get out of high school. Then so many other pieces fall in place. So it all comes back to all that career connected learning, starting at an early age with career awareness and career exploration and prep. And now with Career Connect Washington, there's this additional piece that is the career launch piece, which includes having a paid internship or apprenticeship as part of this coordinated effort. So if we can all figure out how to help kids come out of high school with a clear picture of what they can become, I am personally convinced that this $1.5 trillion of student debt, those monies could be much better spent if a young person came out with a vision, didn't come out with I don't know where I'm going, or I guess I'll go to college because somebody told me I should.
Yeah.
We can do better. And I think our community can write the book on what better is.
Yeah.
I think we can do this.
I want to just echo what Deb said, because the Stem Nexus initiative really focuses on that. We're really hoping to help inform and increase the awareness. So when a young person has to make a decision on their high school and beyond plan, that they know that there are hundreds more STEM career pathways right here in our own community. And so we're working on those early projects on how we can partner with our K-12 organizations to help provide more of that awareness.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a great note actually to end on, because like I said, from TriDec's perspective, I know from any businesses that we work with, you know, from members to board members to other partner organizations, we talked about the Regional Chamber of Commerce and our other chambers and Visit Tri-Cities. I know that we are all very interested in doing exactly that. So just exactly what you're talking about, anything we can do to, you know, tours, exploration, internships, apprenticeships. And I'll just bring up, you know, we were involved in a meeting on Wednesday, and you know, we were able to get a socially distanced tour through the local 598 hall, which is amazing. The training that they have set up for apprenticeships in, you know, steam fitting and electricity and HVAC and all these skilled trades through the local union. And it's amazing that, you know, a skilled trade has also a connection to STEM education. It's critically important. We toured their facilities, and it's full of computers and labs and everything else. It's not even what kids have the picture of. So to your point, let's get kids out there and show them these careers. Let's help them complete the high school and beyond plan. Let's give them these resources. Let's bring the Tri-Cities to bear on this issue and close the gap. I think it's awesome. And so I'll just say that you know, we're in this, and we want to partner wherever appropriate, and anything that we can do to help these initiatives. It's so awesome that you guys are doing this, and that we have the chance to do it right here in the Tri-Cities. So we're at time, but I wanted to thank both of you guys and see if you have any closing remarks. We got a few more minutes if you want to leave a parting words of wisdom with us. But thank you both for your time today. This has been a really, really good conversation. Evangelina, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate, Karl, that you had Deb and I here today. This is a conversation that Deb and I spend many hours conversing about, and we're really excited that through you and through TriDec, we can potentially get more partners to help us with this work, because we welcome that. Because as Deb has said more than once, we have a big gap to fill, and it takes all of us to help do this work. So thank you again for allowing us this opportunity to have a conversation with you.
No, you bet. Thanks for your time. It's been a really good conversation. And Deb, any closing remarks?
No, I'd just like to invite everybody if they want to join us on the 17th. And Karl, we have your number now. We are in to get this figured out, because I'm tired of laying awake every night worrying about how we get this done. It's a huge job, but it is such a mutually beneficial. It's good for kids. It's good for business. It's good for the fabric of our community. It's just such a win-win. We just need to get all of the infrastructure in place to really get it done, and to lead the nation. Let's do that, become that national model for business, labor, industry, all to be engaged in helping kids really build this bright future.
It's a great point. And we are committed to it, because, you know, for us to fulfill our mission of diversifying our economy and continue, you know, to create good family paying jobs, if anything that we can do in this area makes us that much more attractive to bring companies in, to help existing companies expand, and even to help companies start up, because we've got the talent and the labor pool that it takes to make that happen. So thank you both for your time this morning. It's been a really great conversation. I look forward to working more with both of you and supporting you in any way that we can. So thanks again for your time. Everybody have a great weekend, and join us next week. We'll let you know what's going on with Coffee with Karl. We do have our election impact update on the 12th, where we'll talk about the federal election and the state election. So I do want to give everybody that primer. But Evangelina and Deb, thanks again for your time this morning.